photo shoot with multiple cosplayers, multiple photographers. However, it was a little smaller than usual. It was at that horse ranch. Worked pretty well, but the conditions were rough. We had very cold conditions. There was actually snow at one point, which I'll get to in this video. Still a fun time. Still got some interesting photos from that event. Equipment wise, I had the two Canon EOS M50s. I brought the 55 to 200mm kit lens. I also brought the 32mm f1.4. That was my main setup with the 32 and one of the M50 cameras. I brought the gimbal. I was planning on to do some video work, but with the conditions, it was extremely cold, a huge amount of wind, very strong wind. I eventually figured out that it just wasn't going to work out too well. So in that case, I just wanted to focus more on photography. There was only one other person taking photos. What I did with video, as you'll see in this, is that I used the little action camera on a tripod that I brought. It's the Manfrotto tripod. The wind was so strong it was pushing over the little action camera with a large tripod.
It wasn't this windy this morning. GoPro down? GoPro down.
It's fine. First photo session was with the Final Fantasy Online cosplayer. Amazing outfit. She spent so much time on those outfits. It was extremely windy at the time. We were able to get a few photos here and there around the property. There's one area with some nice trees, also really tall grasses. I'm not really sure what you would call those. That worked really well, even though the wind did mess things up a little bit here and there. We took a few photos outside, but eventually we went back inside to warm up. I did take some photos with her inside as well. Nice light coming in from the main door area. I also used my little video light that I brought to add some extra light from the opposite direction towards her face. That way she had some backlight plus directional light from the front. Before the event, I decided to buy a micro SD card for my phone, 128 gigabytes. That way I could most likely put all of the photos and videos on there. I think I ended up with about 30 gigabytes total. So for the first set of photos with the Final Fantasy cosplayer, we took a break. I pushed all of those to the phone. That way I have that backup as quickly as possible. Of course, these Canon cameras only have the single card slot. The second photo session was with the two video game cosplayers. One was from Skyrim, other was from Witcher 3. With those photos, I was using the 32mm lens quite a bit. We eventually switched to singles. I went out to that same area that I did with the Final Fantasy cosplayer. With some of the trees, I could get some foreground tree plus a background tree. I really liked that angle. I was using the screen quite a bit on the camera. It's very convenient to get angles that I wouldn't normally see or look for when I'm looking through the viewfinder. Also, I don't have to bend as much, I don't have to angle as much with my body. When I'm using the screen, I can pull it out if I need to, or I can just hold it in different angles. So with mirrorless cameras, that is a big advantage to having quick changes between viewfinder and the back screen, and everything's the same. While we were taking a break, there was a very quick snowstorm that happened. It's Illinois, so things like that do happen. In this case, October, it's kind of a mixed bag of very warm, very cold weather. But the snow came on, we went out, we took more photos, again with the two video game cosplayers. I was having issues with what I wanted to do based on shutter speed plus the lenses that I had. The Canon EOS M50 doesn't handle high ISO too well. Obviously with Canon sensors, they're just not as good in those situations. And I had the kit lens for 55 to 200. At 200mm, you're at f6.3 plus the sensor that's not great. I was having quite a bit of grain and noise in the images after looking at them. Some of them did turn out pretty nicely. I just wish that I had a faster lens in that situation, because I really wanted higher shutter speeds to get the snow in a natural look to them, because it was moving pretty quick. When I lowered the shutter speed, it's just like long streaks of snow. And I had to up the ISO, of course, in those situations. Again, equipment does matter in some situations. In this case, having a faster lens would have helped out, or just a camera with a better sensor that could handle those higher ISOs. We also went out from the porch area to the front lawn again, took more photos in the snow, worked out really well. In that case, there was a bit more light, so the images aren't as bad ISO-wise. Had another break. In this case, another photographer showed up, another cosplayer showed up. We eventually went out to their large building to take some photos with a horse. worked out relatively well. Again, in my case, I had issues with image noise and loss of sharpness with the photos because of the higher ISOs. I did take some photos with the 32mm lens, but when you have 3 photographers taking photos at the same time, you want to be away from the horse and the person, so I definitely had to use the longer range lens most of the time. I did learn a lot with this equipment. It's basically consumer level equipment, but I did try to get out as much as I could from the equipment. Some situations it worked really well. The Canon EOS M50 plus the 32mm lens was amazing at getting focus right on the eye. Of course, when you do go in lower light conditions, like in that big building with the horse, focus was more of an issue, especially with the longer range lens. With the conditions that were not ideal, I actually got very unique and interesting photos that I would have not normally gotten in those situations. Mostly we do this in the summertime, so having it towards winter is very unique and interesting. Again, thanks to the host of the event, thanks to all the cosplayers for coming out, taking photos with all of us.